Well, happy birthday, Dr. King.
Happy birthday.
Huh? This is a birthday celebration now. That's what we're here for. We do the commemoration in April. But this is a celebration, which means we've got to give some gifts. You know, we just had a celebration on the 25th, remember, and to commemorate that, we gave gifts. The question today is, what gift, if Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was alive, would you give him? He had some things that he wanted. You know, something about content of character. He said America had a check that was insufficient when it came down to justice. But I think more than anything else, what he would want would be dream makers. And that's what we have on this stage. Let's give him a hand, first and foremost. Now, before you leave here, it would behoove you to meet these people. Notice I said dream makers. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the result of Dr. King fighting conservative policies since the day he was born. And had they persisted, there's a very great possibility the people on this stage would not be here. Now, check with them, find out their bio, because trust me, I couldn't read all of this. I can tell you, you guys have been around and done that. But I would like for you to share with my audience some very brief answers to some of the questions I'll give. Because you are definitely, well, let's put it this way, you're at the top of your game. There are some people who let things happen, some people who make things happen, and then there's a whole lot of folks wake up that morning and go, what happened? They're not on this stage right now. With that, I've got to start with Dr. Kenyatta. I'm going to ask each of you in one word, what would be the top 1, 2, 3 of how you got here? One word. First word, second word, third word. Dr. Kenyatta?
I would say the first word. Can you hear me? Am I hear me?
Yeah. 2.
Can you hear me? Okay. The first word that would describe how I was able to get to this point in my career, I would say would be just by dreaming. I can remember being a young girl just growing up in Gulfport and having the dream that one day I would become a dentist and come back to serve my community. So it started out with the dream for me. Secondly, it would be my work ethic. You know, you get out of it what you put into it. And I put in some long nights, some early mornings of studying and practicing to get to where I am today. And thirdly, I would say, it's kind of hard to say just one word for thirdly, but I would just say by somebody else helping me. Because I didn't get here by myself. There was a lot of people who helped to shape me and mold me to who I am today, and I'm very grateful for them.
Thank you, Dr. Kenyatta Bennett. Might need our technical guy to look at this mic, if you could. Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Trey Brown. I knew his daddy and his granddaddy and all of them.
Yes, sir. I think I'm having mic trouble, too, thank you so much, Uncle Rip. And I say uncle because he's everybody's uncle, right? We listen to him every day, so thank you for your support. I think one of the most important things that when I look back over my life, I think, you know, the first thing that I would have to attribute my success to is God. Just really understanding who God is and what God has done for me and my family, and understanding godly principles and being able to apply them every day as I go throughout my career. I think the second thing is discipline. It takes discipline and hard work, a hard work ethic, and understanding that there's a reward and a greater reward in spite of your current circumstances. So that takes discipline and heart, and it takes hard work. And then to support, like Dr. Kenyatta. I had a great support system. My mother and father, my community, my church members, everybody laid a great foundation, and I just kind of catapulted from that. So I think those three things really is what I can attribute most of my success to.
Thank you very much. To my left, Reverend Tony Ramanique Jr. And what 3 words would define how you arrived here?
I would say first, faith. I'm the oldest of 11 kids raised by a single mother, but on welfare, right? So faith, I didn't have anything but faith. And so growing up, not having much, and I would look out, I guess, the window, so to speak, proverbial window, and see other people doing well. And I just felt one day in my heart that could be me. And so faith would correlate with God. And then I would say family. Family, meaning having a family life together. I valued seeing relationships, married couples, like long-time married couples. And I would look at them and wonder, could that be me one day? And then try to pattern my life after what I saw by having a strong family life. So faith, family, then the last thing is finances. After faith, I had to fund whatever it is I wanted to do. And so I had to get out of that bad credit situation. You know, the kind of credit situation where you're 12 years old and your credit already bad because mama had to get the light bill in your name. I tell mama, and I don't fault you, ma. You had to do what you had to do, right? But we had to get the credit thing together, right? And so faith, family, and finance.
All right. Last but not least, my dear friend Mahmoud Abdul Rauf. 3 words.
3 words or 1 word?
1, 2, 3. 1 word that describes how you arrived.
I think everyone on this stage, we have similar answers. I'm definitely going to say God, and because without God we can't do anything. And we've heard that phrase time and again. But also I'm going to attach to that love. Just the love of the right. God putting us in the right situation to associate with the right people, and sometimes even the wrong people. They say Jesus, peace be upon him, was once his disciples once asked, and they said they saw somebody doing something bad. They said, well, you can learn from that. They say, how can we learn from that? By learning what not to do. So for me, and just when you think about, even we're here to celebrate Martin Luther King. When you think, you can't sustain that type of movement, that type of commitment, without, one, a love for yourself and a love for people. There's a saying that if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service of others. And so just being in those right associations with people, and then I would say perseverance. When I think of persistence, I think it's the short game, right? You got a dream to make it somewhere, you get there, but then perseverance is how long are you willing to stay and continue to evolve and get better at it. So those are the 3 things that I would say right now.
With that in mind, yes, give him a hand. With that in mind, I'd like to, be it that this is, in fact, a birthday celebration, and typically you give gifts. You guys are dream makers. Let me go back to you, Mr. Rauf. So what would be your gift to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King today?
Oh, well, that's a tough question. I would say to all the lessons that he intended to leave us with, the messages, not just verbally, but practically. If I'm going to give him a gift, the best way to honor that gift is to show it through my actions, that I'm willing to uphold those principles. As I said before, you can't sustain this type of commitment that he had without constantly trying to evolve. We've seen where, his message in the 50s, and then the further you got into the 60s and the 70s, he was constantly a person that was rethinking the landscape, political, social, economic, of the world that he was living in, and he was constantly transforming himself and not being afraid to do that. And then recognizing even when he felt that he was wrong, not being afraid to admit that. So like all of those things, just being a person that if I'm truly going to give him a gift, the best gift is to follow that legacy to the best of my abilities.
Thank you very much. Reverend Tony Ramanique Jr., your gift to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He would be 95.
Wow. So he started right before he was assassinated. He started the Poor People's Campaign, which basically was a group economics deal where he was trying to get like-minded entrepreneurs and people together in order to have a economic floor, so to speak. And he said this time when we go to Washington with this campaign, we're gonna ask where's our check. So his speech on economics and reparations was trying to get money back into the community. And my gift to him would be to continue that on through group economics, because you're really not truly free until you're economically free. And so that would be my gift to him.
All right. Dr. Kenyatta Bennett, so your gift to Reverend Dr. King, if he were here today.
Thank you. It's okay. If Dr. Martin Luther King was here today, the gift that I would give to him would be the gift of selflessness. I believe in not only being a hearer, but a doer of the word. And I try to put myself... Hello? Here's some words. I'm gonna get it right. There it is. Okay, so as I was saying, I try not to just be a hearer, but a doer of the word. I try to make sacrifices for myself and to be able to help others. I try to sacrifice my time to be able to help someone else. Just in the way that Dr. King did, he was a man that was amongst the people. He wasn't just preaching the word. He was out there marching with the people out there. You know, his face was seen. He could reach him, you could touch him. And that's the way that I try to carry myself in a manner to where if you're looking for Dr. Bennett or Kenyatta, you know, I will be right there for you. I will be at your child's basketball game. I will be by your side if you've got a volunteer event. If you need me to show up at your children's school or at your school, I will be there. And so I try to give myself not just of my time, but of my actions.
Trey Brown, what would you give Dr. King?
Thank you. So one of my favorite scriptures is when Jesus said, "The least thing you do for my people, you also do for me." And so when I think about that, I think about the influence, not just the influence, but the impact that Dr. King had and what he did personally for me. And so part of the reason why I'm on the stage today is I'm a founding member of the Movers and Shakers Social Club. And basically what that social club is we want to make certain that with the initiatives that we do throughout the community, that we bless children and that we leave a lasting legacy in education and social awareness and collegiate activity for children to be impacted throughout our communities. So the gift that I would leave Dr. King is for me to continue that work and be the philanthropist that God has called me to be and work with children and to help impact children that way.
Right. Now we'll get to the difficult questions. How about that? I'm going to start with you, Reverend Dominique. As you look out today, being economically, what is your greatest fear when it comes to how first let me just tell you, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King did get a gift. He got the Nobel Peace Prize. He did, prior to his death, of course. 39 years old, he was taken away. In 39 years, gone. Medgar Evers, 37 years old. Young life. By the way, I'm just curious. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Let's see the hands of the 39-year-old African-American males in here. 38? 37? 37 years old, Medgar left. Dr. Gilbert R. Mason was 37 years old when he went on the beach. Dr. Dunn was 39. Now, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, it is very telling. So with that said, I'd like to ask this panel, what is your greatest fear with all of your successes? What is your greatest fear for the future of young, specifically African Americans, but Americans in total?
My greatest fear is that I think I have I don't know, I got maybe two that's parallel, but one is that they'll forget God. I feel that, you know, you may chase after things and think that's sufficient, but only God sustains. He's the giver and he's the sustainer, you know, of things, of wealth. And so that's a fear. And then another fear is that they might settle. They might settle for something that's less than what they should have. And so those are my two greatest fears.
Mahmoud, greatest fear.
I'm trying not to repeat what he just said. I'd have to agree with him. Is that we as people, we're becoming, it seems, further removed from what we perceive God's plan to be, and then we're easily influenced, and we easily advocate for policies and laws and things that man himself established that has no correlation with Scripture. For those of us who believe in that type of thing, and I do. And so I would definitely say that that's the biggest fear, and that we'll continue to be in this same cycle. Because Martin Luther King said something that was very important. He said that your freedom will never be given voluntarily by those who oppress you. And so we continue to, year in and year out, we go through a system that's designed, right, and people may not like this, whether it's talk to your senator, talk to your congressman, all of these people every year. But if we look at from the inception of this country until now, right, there's books out there called Slavery by Another Name, The New Jim Crow. Like literally nothing has really changed. To even reach economic parity with whites, it would take 228 years because of the damage that has been done. And so this is for me the greatest fear, that we become so far removed and it's easy for us just to listen and just to accept all of these other ideologies and things that really hasn't served us well from the beginning of this country's inception until now, and we continue to do the same thing.
Trey Brown, what would be your greatest fear?
I think my greatest fear would be really sharing the same sentiment as these two gentlemen, but also losing yourself. I think I am completely comfortable walking into any room and having a conversation regardless of people and their prejudice, regardless of people and their ignorance. I feel completely comfortable, and I feel that way because I had an aggregate around me that surrounded me with love, that helped me understand who I was as a man, and who I was as a boy, and who I was as a child of God. And I attribute that to my parents, my surrounding communities, my educators, teachers, and people around me. So I think one of my greatest fears is for people to lose who they are. You should be completely comfortable walking into any room, having a conversation, whether personal or professional, with who you are and what you bring to the table.
Dr. Bennett, your greatest fear for the future?
My greatest fear for the future is that our history as African Americans will be erased. We see so often now that with politics and politicians that they are trying so hard to erase things like slavery from the history books. And if we don't teach our own children, then they'll have no way to learn of what happened in the past, and then history has a chance to repeat itself. So therefore, I feel as if it's our responsibility to stand up and to teach our own children, because we see now that we can't depend upon the school systems to do it alone.
All right. So, Trey Brown, how do you measure your success?
I'm in sales, Uncle Rip, so I measure my success by setting a goal, achieving the goal with clear objectives, and making sure that I accomplish them. So when it comes to my goal setting, when it comes to what I look at as it relates to a vision for my life, I want to set a goal. I want clear and complete objectives as to how I can attain and achieve that goal, and I knock it off list by list, point by point.
Just rip, okay? Uncle. I know Lucian. Don't get it twisted here. So let's start with Mahmoud. So how do you measure your success?
This is why you have been in business since Kennedy. You ask really good questions. Man, it's tough just to. Yeah. There's a question that was asked to the prophet. They say, "Who is the best individual?" He said, "The one you benefit from the most." So when I think if I'm to measure success, I'm going to think about how many people have I, through what God has blessed me with, how many people was I able to benefit and impact? And so for me, it's all about, we all have our flaws, but it's all about the service. And, what good is having all of this, but if you're on the mountaintop by yourself? So for me, it's how many people have I been able to impact, whether ideologically, whether spiritually, whether physically, whether financially, to help them to get to become their better selves and reach their goals. So, and I still have a long way to go.
Dr. Bennett, your measurement of success.
The way that I measure my success is I look at my numbers. So I look at numbers from the year prior. I may look at numbers from the month prior and compare those to how I'm doing at that moment. But what I make sure that I do is that I'm always comparing myself to myself. Because in my mind, it's me versus me. I'm not going to be comparing myself to someone else because someone else's journey may not be my journey. Their story may not be my story. I'm the only one who can live my life the way that I live it. So in my measurement of success, it's me versus me.
Reverend Monique, so how do you measure your success?
I think echoing some of the same things that have been said, becoming the highest and best version of myself first. No matter how successful I may look to somebody else, if it's not reaching my potential, I'm still unsuccessful. Because if God called you to be great, why you want to be good? So it's a sin to be good if God called you to be great, right? So, and then secondly, like, who around me winning? Like, everybody around me got to be winning, right? So that's how I measure myself, and not just winning financially. I'm talking about financially, but I'm just saying family-wise too. I think in an effort to correct, so-called correct, how we were reared by our parents. If our parents were strict, a lot of parenting went in the other direction, and is no boundaries at all. And so if I can step up and kind of talk to somebody who want a boundary, because kids want boundaries, right? If I can step up and be that for somebody, that's another measure of success for me as well. The next generation being on a pathway to improvement, self-improvement. So that's how I measure it.
Very good. Reverend Dr. King measures success based upon what his children could do or could not do within his lifetime. As truth be told, I would guess that probably you're looking at people who represent maybe somewhere around $30 million in wealth that's sitting on this stage right now. Pretty significant. However, it did not come easy, I guarantee you. With that in mind, I want to go to Dr. Bennett and ask, what was your obstacle? What was the one time in your life that you just thought it was over? Oh, and how did you overcome it?
Okay. Two-part question. Well, in my life, I've had to overcome many obstacles. One being I was a teenage mother. I had my first child when I was 18. And with that, I lost a lot of friends. I had a lot of friends and I'm in high school, I was in high school at the time. I had a lot of friends who really kind of stopped talking to me. Their mothers didn't want to have them around me. They looked at me as if I was different. And so in that situation there, I challenged myself, and I knew that I was going to be starting a little bit behind everyone else because I started later than everyone else. Everyone else was going to college. I was still giving birth and raising my baby until I could get her into getting into daycare. But what I did was I challenged myself, and I said, you know what? I got something for them. I'm going to show them how to get the job done. And I finished my bachelor's degree in 3 years instead of 4. And I graduated at the same time that they did, even though I started later. But one of the most challenging times for me in my life would be the loss of my husband. I was married, and my husband, he was a dentist as well, and we built our practice together, and in the process of building that practice, he passed away from a brain aneurysm at the age of 30. And so for me, that was completely devastating. That floored me. That was one time I was on my back and I didn't know how to get up. But the way that I was able to overcome, again, was through my family and friends and through prayer, through God's grace and mercy, because it was times where I didn't want to open the window. I didn't want to walk out the door. I remember saying, you know what? Just sell it all. I can't do this any further. I can't do this any longer. And my sister, I had cousins who took off of work for 3 weeks and stayed with me so that I did not sink deeper and deeper into that depression. And I was able to overcome and to be here with you all today. And so now, not only has that office been successful, but I've been able to and blessed to open a second location.
So Trey Brown, what was your darkest moment, and how did you overcome it?
I wouldn't necessarily say that it was one of my darkest moments, but when I was younger, I grew up and I went to parochial school, and not many people that looked like me went to parochial schools, and it was just a way of life for us, and I was able to have great conversations and make great friends. And I think one of the biggest mistakes and one of my biggest disappointments in life is I thought because I had been around other people that didn't necessarily look like the community that I grew up in or was a part of, I thought I was accepted. So when I started working in corporate America and realized that you may be accepted in some rooms but not accepted in all rooms, it was a disappointment to me, because here I am, I was just this guy that was just who I was. And I was professional and I was articulate and I wanted to have a conversation and I didn't see color and I didn't think that people saw color. So I had that crash moment, and it was disappointing to me because I thought in my mind, because I had been around them for the government part of my life, that I was accepted. And so I had to come to the realization that it was what it was. And I was able to overcome it because all my life, my parents and my community around me were able to help me be comfortable in my own skin. So whatever room that I was able to afforded an opportunity to become a part of, I was comfortable. So I didn't let the prejudice or the discriminatory efforts that other people had towards me affect me. So I would say that was kind of it. Yeah.
So Mahmoud, your greatest challenge, and how did you overcome it?
I don't know if I can give you my greatest challenge, but I know you had previously asked my dear sister, I forget how you phrased it, but that point in your life when you thought it was over. You know, I was always taught that it's never over until it's over. And you know, I think Martin Luther King has a saying, and I don't know it verbatim, but I think it's something down the lines: if you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by God, never give up. And so for me, I was always taught, even though I didn't grow up obviously the most educated, or having confidence in my education, I was always taught that God gives us strengths and he gives us weaknesses, but he gives us strengths to overcome those weaknesses. And he's not going to give you a burden that you can't bear. And everything that he gives you is meant to elevate you. We might not see it at the time. So I began to, even at that young age, and even when I was reading the scriptures, and now even when I became a Muslim reading the scripture, for every challenge that God gives you, he gives you like 2, 3 different solutions, right? With difficulty comes ease. I won't give you a burden you can't bear. So what I started to do was, anytime I was hit with something, I'm reinforcing that. Like, hold on, you ain't gonna give me a burden I can't bear. You trying to elevate me through this process. You trying to make me stronger. You're not trying to humiliate me and demoralize me. And so what I did, the more you do that, like anything, if you want to be great at it, you practice. And the more you begin to practice, it just becomes a pattern in your life and how you approach life. And then when you start seeing, oh, hold on, man, that didn't kill me. Actually, I learned from that. That made me better. It helps you to slide on through much easier when you go through those situations and developing the patience. So with anything that I was dealing, whether it was dealing with Tourette syndrome, the racism in Mississippi, you name it, it was like, okay, what's the solution? Reinforce it with something good. It ain't over till it's over, and I'ma die fighting.
Right. Wow. Reverend Romanick, so your greatest challenge and at your darkest hour, how did you overcome it?
Wow. Coming from where I come from, I'm share the same sentiments as my brother right here. I never felt it was over, no matter where I found myself, whatever dark spot I found myself in, because I climbed so far from where I came from. And so, but there was some times where I felt like it was just going to be hard, and I think I can think of 2 times. One time I had a real issue in my marriage, right? And I thought I was going to lose my family because of something I done, right? And I just let you use your imagination. That's right. But my wife stayed with me, right? And so there you have that. And I done a deal one time, and I put the most cash I ever had on that deal, and went home thinking, man, what have I done? I started thinking about, my kids' college and all these different things, and I kind of wanted to recant the deal and revoke the deal, but once the ink dry, that's it. So it's sink or swim. And I ain't never sunk, so I gotta swim. so those were two major times.
Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was 39 years old when he died. What did he do? He went to jail 29 times. He challenged laws and went to jail. He challenged policy. So with that in mind, for the dream makers here, I've got to ask you, going forward, this election year, what policy would you pursue in your individual professions, or what policy you have some concerns about moving forward with the future of your business or your profession? Let's start with you, Dr. Bennett.
Thank you. I would say one of the issues that challenges not only myself in healthcare, but other healthcare providers would be insurance reimbursement, Medicaid coverage, those types of things, wanting to have a politician or somebody in place who is fighting for the people's rights so that you all or whoever can have more benefits and we can do more and our hands are not tied as to the type of treatment that we're able to provide for you all.
Reverend Romanek, what policy do you think going forward this election year would be one that will help you do what you do or continue?
Well, I'm a real estate investor, and so interest rates coming down is really important to me because it kind of drives the sales market up with higher interest rates. So I would like to see some policy or something to put interest rates down.
Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, so this election year, with what you're doing now, what policy would make it easier for you?
Dr. King had spoke about, and I think this is part and parcel of what eventually led to his assassination. He spoke about the redistribution of wealth and / reparations. That would definitely be something that I would advocate for. And I know there's a lot of arguments, and sometimes we are convinced to talk away these arguments. Well, pull your own self up by your bootstraps and all of that. And, Dr. King had mentioned, he gave the analogy of the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 and how when they freed us from physical slavery, but then you don't give us land. And he said, this is Pyrrhic, this is meaningless, right, when you do that. And then he likened it to being in prison and understanding you've been in prison for so many years, and then all of a sudden you realize that the person is innocent, and once they get out of prison, you don't give them a bus ticket, you don't give them food. And so you can't, when you deal with racial inequality, he speaks about the twin of racial inequality is economic, or racial injustice. The twin is economic injustice. So if you want to show us that you really care, because you've given everybody else reparations, you've given the Japanese, you've given the Jews, everybody. But when it comes to us, you don't have the money, but you can send bombs and everything else, the drop of a hat somewhere else. So for me, it would be the issue of reparations. Don't ask us how we're going to spend it, just give it to us. We'll figure that out along the way.
All right, Trey Brown, so what policy you think would help you?
In my professional career, I'm a territory manager for Zoll Medical Corporation. And Zoll is, we do resuscitation for hospitals, so it's a medical device company. So I would have to say healthcare, making sure that hospital systems, number one, are good stewards over the money that they have, and then number two, that all of us have affordable healthcare and equipment available when needed.
Can I say something real quick, Rip?
Yes, please.
I just want to say, too, that none of these answers in no way, shape, or form are wrong. So, yeah.
You okay? All right. Last question here, panelists. So for young, aspiring entrepreneurs, ministers, teachers, healthcare workers, simple one-sentence advice for them toward their being successful. Start with you, Reverend Romanek.
Being successful, I say first, stop to consider and pray to find out what you're here for. And I think once you find out what you're here for, you go get educated in that. Because God gives us natural gifts, and then the education system should help us develop those gifts. So that's what I would say, find out what you're here for. What's your purpose?
How about it, Trey? Trey Brown, the advice you would give to aspiring entrepreneurs like yourself?
I would have to say work hard and do not give up.
You just keep it. So what about you, Dr. Bennett?
I would say that it's okay to start small and dream big.
Good answers. All right, Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, you've got the end.
I would say keep God first, middle, and last. I would say find out something that you love, because when it's something that you love, it's easier to do and it doesn't feel like work, and you have a greater chance of becoming successful. Align yourself with people that's going to challenge you, not just necessarily people in the same field as you, But even if they're outside the field, because this intersectionality of information and experiences can help advance you in ways that you may not have foreseen. So, and just be consistent, because we all love healthy consistency that wins the day every time.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank Legacy and many of the sponsors here, folks. This has been extraordinary. I want you to know that these folks are going to be here for a bit, and you need to sit down and chat with them. You know, there's no doubt about the fact that we all have to embrace our discipleship, whatever that is. And God calls you, you come. Simple as that. Your gift on this day, or on Martin Luther King's birthday, because that's what we do to celebrate, is for you to turn to your neighbor and say, I got you. Say it again, I got you.
I got you.
Because that's exactly what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King did. Thank you very much.